There we go. Hello, everybody. If you celebrate it, happy Easter. If not, hope you're having a good day. So today I'm going live to give you guys a little bit of a backstory. We're not going to be playing the game today, but I wanted to give you guys a little bit of backstory into what's happened before we started posting and live streaming. Maybe give you something to watch, something to do if you don't have a lot going on today. So that being said, here we go. Made a few notes. So we've been playing for about 2 years now. So hello, my name is Bill Moore. I'm the creator of Falling Stars. It's a tabletop RPG I'm hoping to get published so that we can all enjoy its potential, its adventures, and its fun. So on this Easter we decided to give you a past adventures in the story, into the story from myself as the GM. And it tends to catch you guys up. That way you know what happened prior to. So if you're sitting there wondering, well, why do they have all this money and all these ships? This is why. Story began on a sunny day on the planet of Yandan Catan. It's a harvesting planet. It was terraformed long ago to be utilized as a harvesting planet, so it would feed that section of the solar system. Well, that section of that sector of the solar system anyway. The planet was terraformed in which trees grow fast. Farms, you plant, they grow in a week, and you harvest. So work is nonstop, and the planet is always busy with work to do, except through the winter. And that's due to the heating and cooling cycle. You have to have a winter. Anyway, the trees, if you needed lumber, the trees grow and they'll start as a sapling. One day, by the end of the week, they're about 6 feet tall. So things have been terraformed to be on the expedited end of production. That being said, our friends that you've met, Jala, who's played by Vanessa, Godric, who's played by my brother Wayne, and myself, Jack, met at a job board. And after a quick conversation, they found it would be in their mutual interest to team up to, make some money together and split it. And in doing so, one of the first jobs they took was to a farmer's land. He had some trees that cut down. Apparently some people flaked out on him. But he had the equipment to do it, so he lent them the equipment, and they started cutting down trees. And they made it to a boggy section where they discovered a ship sank in the bog. They used the heavy machinery to pull it out, and that was their first vessel. It was a medium-sized aircraft capable of hauling people over long distance, light year travel. In need of heavy repair, but it was a very old ship, probably about 200 years old. They renamed it to be the Talon. But inside the Talon, they discovered that there was an AI in there named Amy, which stood for Advanced Mechanical Entity Interface. And she, in her description, looks like a human in a Jabu old military uniform. She weighs about 600 pounds. She's extremely strong, very combat capable, and imprinted on the first person she saw, which was Godric. So she calls him Captain, as she assumed that her military unit in which she served was gone, and they were, in a way. More of that later. But after they discovered her, after a long conversation, oh yes, her description, she's a kind of slight built, taller female, pixie jet black haircut, buzzed on one side. She's also capable of doing mundane tasks such as cooking, cleaning, ship maintenance, very efficient. So they decided to kind of, bring her on board. However, in the Pendari system, AI are illegal. And the reason that they're illegal is because they were used during one of the colonization wars as IEDs to try to assassinate diplomats and politicians and things of that nature. So, that being said, that's what happened there. Amy went along with them on that mission that was given to them by lots of notes. They went on a repair mission. Vessel needed repaired, and they went. Come to find out, it was a trap for slavers to commandeer people on a long, old, outdated ship named the Wicked Witch. It was given a false name at the time, but the Wicked Witch was a former trading vessel, long overdue for decommission. Didn't even have a shield generator on it. After dispatching the pirates, the slavers, they the authorities didn't want the ship or the vessel because it was worthless, and the spaceport in which it sat on was Orland Spaceport, and he didn't want it, and he thought it'd be a good gesture to give it to him, and they took it over. So they had like a small freighter to set up in for a little while, and they renamed it from the Wicked Witch to the Phoenix. After a lot of money was spent, and as a reward for the slavers' capture or demise, they spent that money in repairs on the ship, adding a shield generator, and so on and so forth. After that, the police chief in the city found that they were rather useful and gave them a harder mission, which was to eliminate like the high cartel crime areas in Yandan, because he was pretty much the sheriff of Mayberry and was way in over his head. So he commissioned them and their newly found goods, and more or less dropped bombs and napalm on that section of the city, wiping them out, destroying a cartel gang-ridden section because the police couldn't handle the amount of firepower that was in that section of the city, so they took care of it and were paid handsomely. After that mission, it garnered the attention of a new character who was named Carvante Jasfarna. Now, it's CJ for short. He's a renowned and potentially infamous handler who dresses flamboyantly, fantastically, and is quite ludicrous. He gave them a political mission, which paid out pretty well. All they had to do was transport a diplomat, which ended in conflict, but everybody survived. And he gave them many more missions so they could earn more money. And they earned more devices and purchased quite a bit with their spending power. They got to the point to where Godric and Jala needed their own assistance to help organize things because they were just getting bogged by the amount of calls they were getting and the requests to be seen and, things that were going on of that nature. Now, granted, this is storyline from the past 2 years. Keep that in mind. Many more missions were had that led to discoveries such as the lottery ship Retribution. So there was a war going on at the time, and the Retribution was carrying an artifact. It was a Jabu ship. And the Jabu are a darker skin complected species with bone points at the chin and at the points of the head. That protrude about 2 to 3 inches. And then sometimes the bones grow out of the neck if they're of a royal descent, in a way. Although their royal lineage is kind of gone now through war and capitalism being weaned out. The crew learned that Amy came from the Retribution, and Amy led them to it, which pulled it out of a pocket space, a little small section of pocket space. And they ended up winning several billion, I believe, in Pendari marks to continue to fund their endeavors. Let's see here. Yep. And in doing so, that did end a 200-year war between the Vlakir and the humans. Because the Vlakir coveted this relic, which it looked a lot like a trophy or a statue. But when asked why the fleet commander of the commander of the Retribution, along with his fleet, decided to do that, he's just like to show people how petty they are. Kind of a hell of a way to go about things. Let's see. Let's see here. So CJ went and sent them on a mission after that, which was to see what happened to a crew of archaeologists. They'd gone missing, haven't been heard from for months. And in doing so, they discovered a ship that was crashed. Not of human Vlakir, Jabu. Oh, by the way, the Vlakir looked just a lot like humans, except very emotionless. Like no emotions, very monotone. And it also wasn't lander, which they're an interesting species. They have very tan skin with like a meat or a skin mohawk. Very odd looking species. Almost looked like they were melted a little. And they couldn't figure out where the ship came from, but did know that it was fairly old. Looked extremely technologically advanced. However, it didn't look like it was ready to land yet, but it looks like it was forced down. And after searching the area and discovering a few things and a few items, they learned that the ship was indeed still alive, meaning the occupants inside, which were these jet black creatures with double clawed hands. Some of them had 4 arms, three or 4 legs, and kind of elongated heads that also came to a point at the top where they would claw and slash, but they were intelligent, so they could communicate. Some of them actually had weapons, and they ended up fighting their way out of that and decided to bomb the area. It's kind of a thing with them, is bombing areas. And a wormhole had opened, but nothing came through, and remained open as they fled the area with a new scientist friend they had made to educate them on what they had discovered, which they learned that the species was called the Mar. And that they are more of a water-based creature. Let's see here. So after they fight off the Mar on that planet, they go and return and give the information to CJ. CJ sends them out on another mission and another. Fast forwarding, meaning the crew, learned that the Mar were in essence under the control of the Kova. And the Kova would pretty much use them to whatever end for who knows how long or why. But the Kova were in control of the Mar, for sure. So the Mar were sent and were attacking they were attacking one completely wrecked city. They demolished the city in the first wave. When all during this time, Godric and Jack were campaigning for people to join their military to fight back the Mar, because they had videotaped everything that they'd seen. And hundreds, if not thousands, joined that military as a militia. And they brought what they had, which was precious little, and they turned it into something. That being said, the following months went on when they cleared the one. It's a lot to remember, I'm sorry. They went on to another place that was hit badly by the Mar when the Kova did show. And a slight agreement, which was half-handed at best, with a pirate group, with a ship, which was named Her Majesty, was the name of the pirate vessel. And they decided to do some fighting. They fought the Mar and the Kova off, but the Mar were trying to consume the water from the planet. Like they were pulling hundreds of millions of gallons out of the oceans of this planet, quickly draining it, oddly enough. So after that, obviously the Her Majesty wasn't quite up to the task of trying to defeat them, and was ultimately defeated. Now, that being said, along their travels they came across a few other companions, and got a few more ships of their own, not the fleet ships, but their own personal. Godric had what he called the Knight, which was a super carrier. It was a cargo hauler or two. Jack took over the Phoenix and renamed it the Old Warhorse. And then Godric then moved on to another ship, because he can't sit still. And it was an even bigger ship, but he never really got to fly it because it needed 1,000 crew to pilot the thing, use the guns. It's called the Chancellor. And he gave the Knight to Jala. And then Godric moved on from that ship, which he sold to somebody CJ knew, into another super carrier like the Knight, but looks different. Yeah, he he spent a lot of money. They've earned a lot of money. They spend a lot of money. But the last ship he owned is the current one he owns, which is called the Haunted. He named it. So Jack took over the Phoenix, which moving forward was almost completely destroyed after they got into the big conflict with the Mar and Kova. When the war came to a head, the Kova sent a message saying it's on, because they were tired of the Mar getting repelled by the militia fleet. All the while, come to find out, the council of the Pendari system and of Yandan had fled with all of the money that the Pendari system and Yandan had. So, all in that sequence, Godric became the counselor / chancellor of the sector, which he still currently holds the title, but there's an election being held where he doesn't intend to run. And alliances were made with the Mechales and the Vlakir and the Landers, the Jabu, and the other species. The Ogma are a species which is, Godric and Jala play. They are pale skin typically. Their hairstyles vary occasionally, but typically they're just kind of like combed back in a way, or bald. A lot of them, they just really don't know how to deal with hairstyling because their head shape's odd. And again, throughout their adventures between the Mar and the Kova and fighting them off where Jack lost his ship, they picked up a new entity called Amy. Now, Stitch. Stitch is short for the situational targeting implementation characterized harbinger. And she came with a fleet which imprinted on Jala. Now, these ships were brought down as a part of the deal post initial conflict with the Kova ship. And Stitch is pretty much a magnifying glass for gunfire. She will, and is capable of opening wormholes and traveling great distance if she chooses. She is not a physical form. She is more of a Cortana-like form, if you will. But she emits a lot of radiation for her to do that. She has an affinity for punishing. She is very powerful, and she has a fleet behind her, which the pirates unwittingly gave them this stuff. Didn't even know what it was until Jala had happened to tumble into it, just trying to clear these vessels. They were trapped, booby-trapped pirates, and in doing so, they unlocked her. And Jala was imprinted on as being chosen. Whether that's good or bad, we'll see, but she was chosen by Stitch. And the fleet comes with a few raggedy combat ships, missing pieces, but somehow still fly. Let's see here. The ships are... Let's see here. There is, in the Reaper fleet, there's the Hobo Bomber, which is a Hobo Bomber where it's bigger on the inside, if you get my drift. Then there's a medical ship ran by an AI, which is a lot like Stitch, called Domino. She's able to duplicate herself a lot. And there's a funeral ship, which is handy for church services and funerals, ran by another AI named Dr. Powell. That ship is named the Tombstone. And then there's the murder ship, which was ultimately destroyed during the Kova-Mar conflict over top of a star. And that ship caused great damage to Amy, because they were going in there to power it back on, but it was a bad experiment gone horrible, where the mind of a serial killer from Earth, old Earth, madman, was paired with artificial intelligence and put into the ability of a ship. So he could change the interior to whatever he wanted it to look like. He could do anything almost inside his ship. So in essence, he was locked in a cell that could move. So he was destroyed. Ship's gone. In an EMP blast that the Kova ship pushed out, which also erased the mind of one Dr. Alira, who was a rather heavy player in the game early on, as she created a vaccine that would stop the Mar, because if you got bit or stabbed by a Mar, you were impregnated with Mar, so you would have to get vaccinated to prevent that. She made a lot of currency from that treatment, and also earned CJ a lot more currency. So she's also suffered from caffeine addiction, which in end, Domino had to put her in a coma, where her mind was put in a paradise for her to exist for a week or so while she was detoxing from a caffeine addiction. And she was on the ship in the battle because Domino couldn't pull her out of it, or she might, suffer like a stroke or a heart attack, and her mind got blanked. So she was just a vegetable in a way. So after that war, the Kova surrendered and fled back to whatever area they came from, which is still unknown. They then retreated and had a funeral back on Yandan Catan, where a parade was had of great impressiveness, essentially. So after the funeral, they got together to break up a slaving planet where the conditions on that slaving planet were absolutely abysmal. You would drive through pollution, stand in pollution. The mud was polluted. The planet was ruined from black market trading, dirty deals, and slaving again. And in doing so, they infiltrated the planet, found somebody who could help on the planet during the mission, and decided to free the planet, which they did, which took quite a bit, as it took all of their resources and they pulled in all of their favors from the Mechales, which is a species that just made peace with the Pendari system through Godric. They were at odds, or more or less the Pendari system was at odds with them, because many, 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 many years ago, they decided to try and take over the Pendari system and not necessarily assimilate them, but kick them out because they wanted the farming planets and stuff. So it didn't happen. But they found peace there. And all the while this is all going on, Jack had created on the second continent of Yandan a military base where all of his militia fleet would stay, train, repair, and rest. A lot of stuff's happened. I'm sorry. I'm rambling. There were a lot of big purchases made and a lot of big purchases. Oh my goodness. They bought one piece of property on the first continent just before the Mar turned into the Kova situation. It had a house on it. They bought it from the old farmer in which they found the first ship, the Talon. Only to come to find out that entire area was quite the doomsday bunker. Hello. And in that bunker there was an anti-aircraft battery that would flip up out of the ground and target certain vessels. They found that the former owner had quite the network of spy cameras everywhere, from the council building downtown to the men's restroom in certain precincts. He had intersection cams on lock. He had everything. And they also found more ships sank in the swamp behind the house, and they found one Titan mech, which is a very, very, very big mech, almost the size of a skyscraper. And of course they fixed it all up in due fashion. They also found out through about a year's worth of work that the former owner of the house was an acquaintance of CJ, who was quite the psychopath. Another major purchase that they made was the initial purchase of the night. It was a gutted hull sitting on a backwater planet no one could remember. And when people brought it up, all they said was, "Oh yeah, that thing I thought was ready for scrap." But that cost them several $100 million to fix. They've bought a lot of vehicles. They were donated quite a bit through the war effort, where like the Agma and the Jabu donated tanks that they were about to decommission. The Vlakir offered air support and things of that nature. And now to break up the story real quick, in a lot of these games where, it's sci-fi based, they say, oh, money and tech break the games. Not necessarily. That's all in the GM's control. In my game, it doesn't matter how much you have. The dice tell a lot. The dice make you or break you. So whether you have 100 million and you're trying to jump a chasm, that natural one could cause it all to end. It's the reality of dice games. So it's all in the dice's hands and the discretion of the GM. So that being said, purchases, lots of purchases. Oh my god, so many purchases. Jala, in buying the Knight and getting it fixed up, somehow made friends with a Trat, which is a very large meat-eating dog, which are typically like a pest. They're like, the Jabberwockies, if you will. They'll just eat your kids and stuff. So you typically stay away from, but she befriended one. It was probably a puppy then. It's grown and grown and grown, and now it has its own plot of land to go run free on, and she pays people to watch it while she's away. Finally named after 2 years, Dagon. Dog ain't got a name. So that finally happened. Going back to my notes. Let's see here. So, after the Kova-Mar situation ended, the Pendari Council, along with the Indian Council, were found corrupted. That being said, Jack put a hit out on them to have them brought to him, unbeknownst to Jack and Godric. And he found them. Well, they were found for him and brought to him. So they were under his rule for about a week, and it wasn't pleasant what they had to go through. After doing so, Jack's ship, which was hit also with an EMP, but also took a major cannon blast from the Kova ship, was rendered sillily broken. He had to fly it from the cargo bay through a lot of wire rigging. The superstructure and the framing was twisted and broke. Massive hull fractures through the whole ship. And, his ship was done. So when he found that Godric was being nice and purchased the location of a famous gunship that went down in a water planet, they decided to go after it. And in doing so, they had every intention on losing the old warhorse because the pressures were too great and the superstructure was collapsing around him when he hopped into his mech and pretty much extended the shield bubble, which pushed the water off the entranceway to the ship and made it in. The Wicked Witch went back to the surface while Jack went down there and started to pressurize and fix areas of the Swaler of Rhone on the sea bottom, which took all of half a day. And he came back up with it rocketing like a rocket. And once up, the ship was being towed away when they engaged pirates, and Stitch yet again showed her awesome power by one-shotting a heavy cruiser, a pirate heavy cruiser. So that was an interesting day. This whaler was taken to a ASAR's unit, which is like an orbital repair system that you pay quite a bit of money to have your ship repaired. But it does it all automatically as opposed to having your maintenance crew do it and it take weeks. This is like a day thing as opposed to weeks or months, depending upon the conflict, of course. But the ASAR's unit began working on it to fix up the Swaler, which Jack pretty much spent almost all of his money on. And let's see here. They've made a few new friends. One of them is Riker, who was on the slaving planet but freed. He works on the AIs now. More or less, the AI situation hasn't been addressed. However, there is a planet of exiled AI that has hostilely inhabited Amy's body once or twice, but now that's fixed, requesting that they be set free and that they're dying. So that being said, that's kind of a thing that they've been kicking around quite a bit. there's other slaving planets out there that they were considering going to and liberating. One of them was a possible prison planet, along with the plethora of other things that they've discovered. They now have a mine on the second continent just outside the military base position, where they found that a large chunk of the sitters that were wiped out on the continent are down in that cave, rotting. So if you go down there, you get sick. Jala made a new friend, which is R87. Now named Gil. Gallipoli was his favorite ship to work. The Gallipoli engine was his favorite engine to work on, so they named him Gallipoli, but Gil for short. So yeah, in the recent mission in which they're on right now is they've been given a mission by CJ, more of a favor. So if there's a group of species that is not spacefaring yet, the rule is to leave them be until they are ready. They have to learn the hard way, because that way, in learning the hard way, they learn the discipline of what it could take and what it should take to be responsible enough to go into space, and to learn from others' mistakes along the way. You fast forward that projection, then it's catastrophic because they aren't socially capable of inhabiting space, because they're still dealing with their old world mentality as opposed to an inclusive one. So that being said, there's a group of pirates that are playing gods in a way, allegedly, on some planet that is 3-day high warp travel, in which they are heading to right now. So that being said, I see we have one viewer. Hello. If you got any questions, go ahead and ask, and if not, I'll give you some more general information about the game and how it works. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of what's happened in the past. I know we glossed over a lot of detail, but I would be sitting here until midnight talking about this game if we went through everything that's happened. They've came close to death a couple of times. One of them was on the planet in which the Mar had invaded. It was a hellscape, and they survived it. They almost lost one ship due to just a random chance perfect shot to hit the side of Jala's knight. And it almost went down because it shot a hole right through the bridge and pinned one of the flyers up into the pilot of the ship up into the roof. She lived. She's still alive, but she almost died. They almost crashed. Yeah. And as it stands right now, there's still a small military contingent on Yandia Katian right now. Kind of holding it down. They do patrol sector because there's not really a whole lot of security out there in that space, because all of the civilized zones are kind of far away, and they're kind of like, subclass, second class citizens in a way. So that being said, you get treated kind of lesser. But that's quickly changing as they've come to find out that the crew of the night, or Jala, Jack, and Godric, are quite a powerful force to be reckoned with. The council was given back to the police department for trial for crimes against humanity, as they did have financial stake in the Planet of Chains, the slaving planet. But when they were handed back to Turner, they looked pretty beaten, pretty rough, emaciated, not fed well. Also involving corruption, they found that the junkyard, which one of their friends worked at, his name is Halo, he informed them that he hadn't been getting his full amount of money because he crashed a ship and his boss was taking it out on him because, the ship wasn't fuel. He ran out of fuel and crashed it. That being said, a lot of the other employees weren't being paid proper, which caused more interest and more intrigue, driving them that way, and ended up to the owner's arrest for corruption. And he had ties to also the slaving planets. He had ties to illegal arms. And he's also facing crimes against humanity charges. Well, more or less genocide. He was running. He had an alien species which is still unknown under his thumb. He had some of them captive in a prison ship that was buried under the junkyard, and he just, was using their superior firepower to his own whim. At one point, after he was arrested, the alien species came in and tried to evacuate him from the jail, which caused a massive firefight and destroying the jail. But again, the crew repelled the attack, and they finally came to terms with, we just need to talk to these people because they're very serious about, wanting to defend the planet. So the species, still no name, still unknown, told them about the prisoners and how they were being used against them to pretty much bend them to their will. And of course, the crew freed them. After a brief conflict with androids, they were brought back to the surface, evacuated, and in-kind cartel and pirate ships were shot out as they left the system. More of a parting favor than, we don't like them, because they knew that the guy had heavy amounts of connections across the system to nefarious entities. Because, when you own a junkyard, you own the world. If you think about it. Because everybody needs parts for their ship. Car, truck, or van. Sold here. So, yeah. That's what that is. We then, discovered, that those were going to be charges added to him afterwards. So, right now, they are on a mission, like I said, to go and repel some pirates from playing God over a lower species. Well, a lower technologically advanced species. So, the species. I see we got one viewer. Hello. If you want, you can ask questions. Well, anyway, moving forward, who knows what's going to happen. But yes, as far as game mechanics go, I've made this a simplified version of the D20 system. Now, I know that's a vague generalization, but it's the best way I could explain it without giving it all away. So, let's say you wanted to whip around real quick, pull your pistol, and just take a shot. Alright. Roll an attack. Blah. Okay. Due to the fast and speediness of the turn, I may just let the hit happen. It's in my discretion. Or I may just have them roll a percentile dice if they even come close to hitting them. If they're just like a novice with a pistol. Situation dictates is the best way to go with this game. They're quickly finding that having all of the stuff and all of the things is not always the answer. You can have all of the stuff and all of the things in reality and still have nothing. Which there are systems in this game where money don't mean shit. Respect is what you have to earn to get things. Right now they got the spending power to buy 3 or 4 more capital ships if they wanted to. Hell, maybe 7 or 8. They could terraform a planet, but that would cost them close to $100 billion, which they don't have that much, but they got quite a bit. But again, you could have all the stuff in the world, but what the fuck you gonna do with it all? They're quickly learning that. And they're also learning that inventory control is quite the thing to deal with. And that when you have so much stuff and I forgot my list of stuff. Oh, I guess you don't have it anymore. Consequences. So sometimes, being the bad guy as the GM is the only way to drive home the message of responsibility. So, yep. Well, anyway, I think that'll conclude it unless you guys got any questions or any concerns over this game. We're going to resume streaming live with the rest of the group this coming Saturday or Sunday. So, yeah. If you're interested, give us a check. We'll start at about 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. And we'll see you then. Y'all have a good night.